So let me take a minute to explain what Fantasy Labs is for anyone not
show. We have a show.
Yeah, there's a show. We run this most Sundays here on the D&D Time Twitch channel at twitch.tv/D&D Time. And on the show, we talk about homebrew content. We also talk about official content for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. We really have a focus on evaluating that content for its kind of playability in the game. With the kind of direction and goal, right, of understanding how to create content for 5th edition D&D and how to evaluate it so you can do more and create more stuff for your own adventures. Put. That's the basic gist of what we're hoping to do here.
And we do so using our 5-point rubric. This is kind of the guidelines that Jeremy and I have set out for how we evaluate homebrew and what we think is important in homebrew. He's got it up on the screen, you'll see right here. We go over these 5 categories just about every week, which I don't know if you need to go in too much detail on these, but to just bang through and just give you a general idea. Space, is there room for the new thing that we're kind of evaluating in 5th edition? Basically, is there not one of these already? Balance, just is it balanced? Playability is maybe one of the trickier ones. That is, would it disrupt gameplay? It doesn't necessarily mean it's unbalanced, just does it have things that would over time be frustrating for players or for GMs, even if they are technically balanced or even well designed, because design's the next one. Just, is the design elegant? Does it follow all of the conventions of the 5th edition system? And do the mechanics, can you understand it? Are some of the mechanics interesting? Like, I always get really excited when I see something that has a new mechanic I haven't seen yet that works, because then I know I can just put it in my own tool belt and be like, oh, I'll steal this later when I need to make a homebrew. So design's a big one. And then flavor, just, is it inspiring? Is it cool? Does it make you want to play it?
Absolutely. And for those, I see there's a great discussion going on in chat. Raz651 is saying, if you scroll down on Twitch, there's a banner icon that just says, join us on Discord. If you click that, that'll also bring us to your Discord. But V-Bunny was also saying scrolling is too difficult and requires 2 brain cells, but V-Bunny's only got 1. So I'm sorry, if you only got if you got 1 brain cell, go to our website. If you got 2, scroll down. If you're on YouTube, I don't know. You're on your own. You got to go the 2 brain cell route.
Go to www.dndtime.stream. That's a high IQ option to type in a link. The Discord link, I just checked it. I didn't mention that before because for some reason I thought it was broken, but it is not. It works great.
That's because I upped it. Anyway, right. So guys, Pete, let's talk about what we have on the docket today. So we always go over a bunch of different stuff in Fantasy Labs on the show. We'll always end with our community content, stuff that is created and shared by our community on our Discord that we just have been talking about. But before that, we like to talk about some other different things. First of all, we're going to talk about the Satyr race that's coming out in the new Mythic Odyssey of Theros book. It has been spoiled. It has been spoiled. All of the stats and the effects of the Satyr are now publicly known and available. Wizards of the Coast shared it on one of their streams. So we're going to be looking at that Satyr, and we're going to be comparing it to the Satyr that actually we showed off on this show last Sunday for Pete Flitch's Lair.
Pete, who was unaware that Satyr was coming out already in a couple of days, went and made a big homebrew Satyr. And we're gonna talk about maybe like the pros and cons of each Satyr and how we feel about it. Mythos isn't out yet, but some of the stuff has been kind of leaked and shown in advance. Yeah, spoiled. So if you don't want spoilers for that book, you could, come back in maybe half an hour or so. But we're going to be talking about specifically just the Satyr right now.
Yeah. Then we're going to be looking at the table of content, or most of the table of contents, and just talking about like what we're expecting to come out in Theros. Just like, I don't know how long we're going to talk about it. Maybe 5 minutes of just how excited we are and what we're expecting to see in the book. That's going to be a blast.
For anyone unaware, Theros is a Magic the Gathering set. It's one of the planes in the Magic the Gathering universe. Jeremy, did you play much Theros?
I did, actually. That was the last set. That was the last set that I played before I stopped playing Magic the Gathering forever.
That was definitely towards the end of my Magic the Gathering career, but it's definitely one that I still know a bit about. So I am excited to see. I'm interested, like, about like what they do with the gods and stuff, because those are such a big thing in Theros. The pantheon of Theros, I bet you will be interesting. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that in a moment. We're going to start off by talking about that Satyr.
Yeah, and just to finish up our kind of schedule for the day, we'll be doing a Lich's Lair featuring Crowley for his travel domain cleric. And lastly, of course, we're going to be looking at all the awesome content you guys have created and shared with us. So without further ado, Pete, where do we want to start with the Satyr? First topic, the Satyr.
Last week we did my Satyr that I put together. The flavor of the there was kind of a big, we went through all of like the lore write-up that I did for it. We don't have the lore write-up for the new Satyr. I read through it personally. A lot of it was similar. It was just less Feywild bound, which mine was decidedly bound to the Feywild as a plane. And this is for the setting of Theros, so that makes some references to the Satyr's home on Theros, which I don't know a lot about personally. But we're probably not going to be comparing and contrasting those two things all that much, because they're just different. They're just kind of different animals. Like they had a convention for Satyr names that they put in, which was interesting. They also had these cool little personality quirks that they added as well, which were just different. Fun. Yeah, I like tables like that, just to give you an idea and a little piece of information to get you going on. So it had one of those, which I think will be cool once people get a chance to look at that. But we're just going to be looking, I think, at the mechanics of these two things.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, because Vibani asked in chat a couple minutes ago, did Mythos come out? I'm not sure if we exactly mentioned. It comes out on the 2nd digitally, and then sometime later in the year, it's going to come out physically in local game stores. So if you have a local game store, it might be worthwhile to call them up, because if you're thinking, oh, I don't want to wait and I want to buy Theros digitally, all the local game stores that are in Wizards Play Network received discount codes for D&D Beyond. So if you are planning to buy the physical book someday because you want to have your beautiful physical books, do that. Call your local game store, be like, hey, are you doing the pre-order deal with D&D Beyond? And they'll be like, yeah, if you buy it for pre-order it here, we'll give you a code and you get it. I think it's half off or maybe even free at D&D Beyond. I'm not sure. So just something to note out there, if you've got local game stores around and you want to get Theros digitally, but you also want to get it physically at some point, that's a really good way to support your local game store and get it cheaper.
Yeah, especially during these times when I know that there's a lot of local game stores out there that are struggling. People can't go through them. You got to support the things you love.
They can't locally game right now.
Yeah, people aren't able to game locally. Yeah, absolutely do that. Do you want to look at, just kind of do a quick rerun through of mine first, or would you like to do the new Theros one first, Jared?
Let's start with yours, Pete. So last week we did a Lich's Lair on this, which is a segment where we critically analyze the content against our rigorous rubric, and we give it either a pass or fail on each of those 5 points that we mentioned earlier: space, balance, playability, design, and flavor. And last week, just to recap, I gave Pete a 4.5 because I wasn't sure on the balance for 2 reasons.
Yeah, we gave it a kind of a pass asterisk. Maybe.
And those 2 reasons were starting the stats, charisma +2 and dexterity +2. Obviously,
dexterity plus 1.
Yeah, dexterity +1, sorry. Very appropriate for a Satyr. I mean, like, what other stats are you going to give a Satyr?
Yeah.
Besides charisma and dexterity. But very good stats for any spellcaster, right? If you're a bard, a sorcerer, warlock, or even a paladin, those are pretty much the god tier stats. They're very good. And then the other facet that really is powerful for them is the magic resistance feature.
Yeah.
Which only exists on one other race option, I believe, right? And it's Yuan-Ti?
Yes, it is Yuan-Ti. And also, I mean, Yuan-Ti is, like, Wizards also knows that Yuan-Ti is a bit above the curve. Like,
yeah, they're aware. It's a beast race. Or monster race.
Yep, and then the other thing they get that gives power, they got a ram feature, which is just kind of a ribbon that lets them do a fun ram attack with their horns. They got access to a skill, a decent skill in acrobatics or persuasion or performance as an option as well as a pan flute proficiency. and they got Fey Nature, which gives them an additional Fey creature type, which is actually a slight downside, but a very slight downside.
Yeah, this effectively doesn't matter for all intents and purposes. So they are both humanoid and Fey, and can be affected by any effect that would affect either a humanoid or Fey. So, like, a magic circle could keep them out, right? Or I think detect good and evil could detect that they are a Fey.
Yes,
minor,
exactly.
Minor effects.
And then the Enchanting Melody feature was kind of the big one, which they got a first level spell that they could cast, and with some utility on it, which was the feature I was actually the most excited about on this, which I thought was a cool...
very neat feature. 3 pretty interesting. I never am unhappy to have these spells at my disposal, first level spells. In the few, Charm Person, Cause Fear, and Sleep. And of course, you can only use one of those 3 per day.
Yep.
So that was Pete's Satyr. And we were a bit iffy on the balance of that. I was a bit iffy on the balance of that. But I acknowledge that all of those things really fit. And actually, this was a very, very good Satyr. We were 100% in agreement on that. A very, very cool race option for the Satyr. Now, Spoiled was the new race option for Satyr that's actually going to be coming out in the Mythic Odyssey of Theros. And right off the bat, we're seeing some similarities. They have a charisma modifier of +2 and a dexterity modifier of +1. So identical statistically. Age, Satyrs mature to and age at the same rate as humans. It's pretty much the same thing you did.
Yeah, I had some extra lore that I'd put in there, but...
Yeah, it's essentially the same.
Yeah, similar.
We're going to skip the size and alignment parts because that's not super important. The first real difference is the speed.
Yeah, Satyr's got an extra 5 feet of speed in this one, which...
That's really weird.
Yeah, I didn't fully get it.
Why are they... I mean, it's because they have little goat feet, maybe?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like... Honestly, if anything... When I picture a Satyr, having goat feet seems like it would be a little bit awkward to me, even though, I mean, obviously they're kind of like joyful and dancers, so they're not like that.
Yeah.
But I don't see how that would make you faster personally, but I don't know. I don't dislike it per se.
I mean, the Satyr in the monster manual has a speed of 40 feet. So it's just kind of, I look at this and I think, why 35? Like they're splitting the difference between the monster and a player character. It's just, I don't know. I felt like if they felt that was important, why not go the whole 10 feet? You know, I can't even say the whole 9 yards, less than 9 yards.
Yeah, it's just an interesting choice. I don't fully get, but again, it's not like a problem per se. It's just
a little weird. The next big difference is Fae.
Let's skip Fae. Yeah, let's come back around to Fae because that's going to be the talking point here. Ram is actually no, it's not a completely identical feature.
No, it's not. In the new one, in the official one, their ram is you can use your head and horns to make unarmed strikes. If you hit with them, you deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier. This is actually really weird because this is a big step backwards from like the convention they've been establishing, discovering how they write these natural weapon features. Typically, they would say somewhere in this that your horns are a natural weapon that you can use to make unarmed strikes, which is what Pete did in his ram feature. Your curved horns are natural weapons, which you can use to make unarmed strikes. And the only difference between those two is if you're a paladin satyr in the official version, you can't smite when you hit with your horns, basically. That's really the only difference. Which is just like... It's just a little weird.
Yeah. There might be a couple of other, like, minor things. Like, can you Barbarian hit with unarmed strikes? Can you apply rage damage to unarmed strikes?
I think so, yeah, because it's just melee attack for that.
It's just melee attack that uses strength, yeah. Yeah,
exactly, V-Bunny. Why can't I smite with my horns? Well, it's weird because Wizards of the Coast has done a whole lot of these races with natural weapons, and they've been refining them and improving them as they go, and prior to this release here, the most recent version had that feature on there where it said your blank are natural weapons that you can use to make unarmed strikes. That was like their final rules lawyer, language for how it works.
The point that they wanted to be at. It felt like.
Yeah, I don't understand why they would do it differently here. Why they'd go backwards, unless they just missed it, right? This could be, by the way, this was revealed on Roll20's early access view, so it's possible that in the final printing this will have changed. However, fairly unlikely.
Yeah, this seems to be the true final version.
Yeah.
But the next feature is magic resistance. It's just the same thing that we just talked about. It's just pure magic resistance, advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects.
Yep, identical to what Pete had. Let's go to Reveler really quick, because that's another one that's very similar.
Yeah, the name was even the same.
The name of the feature was identical. Very good.
Sniped that one, I guess. You have proficiency in the performance and persuasion skills, and you gain proficiency in one musical instrument of your choice. I like their choice to do one musical instrument instead of just the pan flute. That was a better choice. They gave 2 skills instead of 1.
Which, that's good, obviously.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's not like performance isn't a devastatingly powerful skill for them to have, but it does open up, like most bards, for example, and this is an ideal bard, want the performance skill just because it's part of kind of the identity of the class. So this opens up another one of their good skills, is the kind of way I would look at that performance almost. So
it's one less skill. It's one less skill that you have. You just get, right. You get to pick something else interesting now because you already get that. Yeah. It's a pretty actually substantial change. And then moving backwards, Merciful Leaps is another.
I really like this one.
Interesting feature. Mirthful Leaps, whenever you make a long or high jump, you can roll 1d8 and add the number rolled to the number of feet you cover, even when making a standing jump. The extra distance costs movement as normal. This is a really interesting feature.
Can I talk about this one a little bit, Jeremy? I really love this design.
Please do.
The thing that I love about this, so it lets you get extra long jumps, which is something, I kind of can see it for a satyr. Them kind of bouncing and bounding around, it makes sense. I just thought mechanically, the choice to make jumping on a variable scale and more chance-based, I actually dislike that jumps are just flat numbers that players can calculate. It takes a lot of drama out of things like, oh, there's a dangerous cliff up ahead. And the player's just like, oh, well, my strength's 20, so I can go over it without any issue. And then as a DM, you're just like, yeah, you go over it. So I like the idea that this encourages satyrs to take risky jumps that they might not be able to make, because that's just a dramatic choice. I just think that's very good design, actually, on this one.
Yeah, and of course, V-Bunny was saying, oh, and I jump off the cliff accidentally because my strength is 10. Yeah, exactly. That would feel bad, but I mean, it gives you a gambit here, right?
It gives you the choice to try it, is the thing. That's what I like about it.
I agree. I think it's just, that's a problem inherent to the jumping mechanics in 5th edition D&D, that this is a cool way to resolve. Why try, V-Bunny? Well, because maybe that's a dramatic moment, and it's worth the try.
You got to get over there.
That's the reason.
And also, you don't have to. You can make the choice not to. But this gives you the option. It's not like it's a bad thing to have that choice.
But even without that, right now, what we're looking for, right, or what we're looking at, comparing this satyr to Pete's satyr, we've got the exact same charisma dexterity, right? We've got the same magic resistance, which are the 2 biggest power features. And what was the next big power feature on yours? I mean, the RAM is effectively identical. They don't really matter. Yep,
Reveler is 1 skill better.
Yeah, their Reveler is better literally by 1 skill than your Reveler. And then Mirthful Leaps, I mean, personally, I see being able to jump better as being more powerful than you cast one of these first level spells once.
Yeah, I don't know. They're comparable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're too far apart either way. I don't know which way I'd lean on that, but...
Yeah. So overall, right now, just looking at it, they're pretty comparable, except there's one huge difference we haven't discussed yet. And that is on the Mythic Odysseys of Theros feature, satyr, they have a feature called Fey. On Pete's satyr, it was called Fey Nature. And Pete based his on something we'd seen a long time ago in Unearthed Arcana, which was Centaur, which was your creature type is both Fey and humanoid, or monstrosity and humanoid, or something like that.
Yep.
And if a game effect would affect one of the types, it can affect you.
I like the term
That's
game
not-
effect that they used there.
I agree. That's not what this is. This is just your creature type is Fey rather than humanoid. And that seems like a really tiny distinction, but it's actually an incredibly powerful and big distinction in this game. Because a lot of effects and a lot of features, both on monsters and in spells, depend on targeting a humanoid. And so by not being a humanoid in this case, you're immune to a lot of different effects that really you might not know right off the bat. And I have been a crazy person.
Jeremy does know.
Yes, but I do know, because I went through the whole damn monster manual and Vol's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I went through all of them, and I looked at every goddamn monster and found out every single effect that you are now immune to, because as a satyr, you are not a humanoid. And there are also a handful of spells in the player's handbook that I also looked at. V-Bunny was saying hold person doesn't work on you anymore. That's absolutely true, V-Bunny.
One of the key ones.
That just hold person.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's weird because this is another thing that Wizards of the Coast realized was a problem when they were making the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica and expressly didn't do on their satyr. I'm sorry, on their centaur. So I'm just really confused as to why now we're seeing it on the satyr. You know what I mean, Pete?
Yeah, Farku was saying right here, you could just count as both.
Yeah, well,
that would be a better.
Did before.
That's the right way to do it. The thing is just 5th edition is in the entirety of 5th edition. I'm not just saying one thing. All of the system assumes that all player characters are humanoids.
Yep.
You could just count as both and suck. Being a Fae doesn't really add that much.
It doesn't hurt
on the
you.
negative side.
Really?
There's like a couple of minor downsides. Like, for example, on the side of being, like, I would say that if being Fae is, or being Fae is 1 against you, it's like 10 for you. Do you want to run him through it, Jeremy? You want to tell him what your findings were?
Yeah, and I guess to answer Farka, because Farka has a really good point here. What do you get for it, right? Why would you want to be Fae if it doesn't give you any mechanical implications? Because there really aren't any positive mechanical implications for being Fae. I think that the argument would be, right, that I mean that you could maybe lawyer it a little bit, like, hey, I am Fae, maybe I have some sort of benefit, right? You can talk to your dungeon master a little bit in the game. You can make that a more part of your character, is what my thought would be as to why. Otherwise, it's really just a ribbon. Like, it doesn't hold any negative power, honestly. But yeah, I'm going to go through right now, and we're going to talk about what being only Fae, which this new Satyr does. We're going to talk about what no longer affects you, what you're immune to, and not only the mechanical implications of it, but how we feel that that's going to affect the gameplay. So I'm just going to rattle these off, and people, if you have any thoughts, feel free, and we can just chat about them, right? So right off the bat,
run us through.
Slotty. Slotty are terrifying monsters from the plane of, they're from Limbo, right, Pete? I get Limbo and Pandemonium all confused.
They are, I believe, from Limbo, yes.
Yeah, and the Slotty, they have an effect where if they hit you with their claws, you can become infected with a Slotty egg, which it counts the disease and turns you into a Slotty eventually, right? It's a chest burster, basically. You are immune to that. It doesn't affect you because you're a humanoid and not because you're Fae and not a humanoid. Kind of lame. Pretty disappointed, actually. That's a really cool feature, iconic to the Slotty. To me, Pete, I don't know about you, but that kind of like makes them less exciting and dramatic of an encounter.
Yeah.
If you're just immune to it. And I know paladins are already immune to it because it's a disease, but just a little like, eh.
It's going to be a recurring theme here is making the game a little bit less interesting.
Yeah. The Cambian, which is a half demon or devil, a half fiend creature. It has an ability called Fiendish Charm, which is a day-long magical dominate/compulsion-like feature. If you fall to its charm, you are just this creature's thrall for a day. It's a very powerful, very dramatic effect, and you're completely immune to it as a satyr. So the cool feature that is iconic to Cambians and makes them an interesting enemy to include in the game just doesn't matter to you, which is great. Definitely going to make for exciting and dynamic gameplay. The Death Tyrant, if it kills you while you're in its negative energy cone, typically you could be raised as an undead by the Death Tyrant, making a dramatic twist in the encounter. But as a satyr, you're immune to that, so it doesn't matter.
I think every single thing that re-raises you back as undead or something like that doesn't work on satyrs.
Absolutely true. The Doppelganger cannot impersonate you.
That one's really rough.
Okay.
That one in particular is just like, that's fun. Like when you run into a clone of yourself in the game and like, or someone like sees you doing something like, I didn't say that. I'm not even controlling the DMs, just saying that I'm doing this stuff. That's just a fun story, but the satyr doesn't get to play on that one. Yep.
It's a little disappointing, I think. Oopsies. I messed something up trying to move around the satyr thing. So yeah, that's the Doppelganger. The Dryad can't use its Fey Charm on you, which that one actually makes a little sense. Again, it's one of those features where if you fail, you're forced to protect the Dryad, as if it were like a trusted or beloved companion. That one I kind of get. The next one really I hate, and that is ghosts cannot use their possession feature upon you.
That one's actually like particularly powerful.
Not only is that incredibly powerful against ghosts, if you're playing in a small party, let's say you're playing with 3 people, right? And you're playing the satyr, the other 2, you run into some ghosts. Those ghosts are just going to possess those 2 other people back and forth forever, and it's going to suck. They're going to be, I would be really irritated if I were now, I don't know, if they were like, I don't know. I feel like I would be annoyed as a player if I were one of those 2 non-satyrs being possessed, as all the satyrs go, ha ha, and are immune to it.
Yeah, over time, well, it's like, I feel like it would take me a long time to realize it. Like, I don't even know if I would go like, this isn't happening to the satyr because they're immune to it. I think eventually it would just be like, man, there's a lot of like heavy CC in this game that I keep getting hit by. The DM needs to take it easy on that kind of stuff because I'd be getting that extra like bump to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, additionally, let's keep moving on past the ghost because man, that wrecks the ghost. Hags can't mimic your voice or impersonate you, which a lot of hags can do. So that's, I mean, I kind of get that a little bit because they're Fey and you're Fey, so I kind of get by that a little bit. Same with like the Harpy. The Harpy's alluring song doesn't affect you. That kind of makes sense to me to a degree. Now, the Succubus / the Incubus. You're immune to their charms. You've ruined the Succubus and Incubus.
That's the only thing they do, yeah.
That's like the only thing they do. Like the only thing the ghost does is possess people. The only thing the doppelganger does is impersonate people.
Yeah, V-Bunny has brought this up a few times now. If you are an Ancient's Paladin and you use your turn the Faithless, does this affect satyrs? Yeah, I believe that it would affect satyrs. That's about... you bring that up. That's actually, I was thinking about what the good things are for it, or what like what the downsides are. And I think that was the only feature that I could think of was that specific Paladin subclass move, which... So
if you're an Ancient Paladin who is a satyr, be careful.
Well put. Yeah, keep going.
The next one is my least favorite on the list, and that is the Intellect Devourer. Everyone in all of my adventures are going to be satyrs from now on. The Intellect Devourer, while it can still drain your brain, it can still drain your intelligence and make you stupid, it cannot steal your body when your intelligence becomes 0. It cannot just kill you and take over your body, which, again, is kind of the core dramatic feature of the Intellect Devourer. So that's kind of lame. Don't like that. Lamias can't impersonate you, but who even knows what a Lamia is? Mind Flayers can't eat your brain. I guess you don't have a brain as a satyr. Myconid sovereigns can't bring you back to life, as most things can't bring you back to life if you die. Night hags can't steal your soul and put it in their soul bag if they kill you with their nightmare haunt, which of course they can't nightmare haunt you either. So I guess you don't have a soul as a satyr either. Important to know. Sea hags can't use their horrific appearance upon you. Shadows, although they can drain your strength, cannot make you into a shadow if you die. Vampires can't turn you into a vampire spawn by killing you, and they cannot charm you, which is like, again, a lesser dominate feature. They control you if you fail their charm. So that is crippling against vampires. Remember, guys, Curse of Strahd, 4 satyrs. We all know how that went. Werewolves and all other lycanthropes cannot turn you into lycanthropes. You're immune to lycanthropy. Which, again, that's the dramatic, engaging, interesting gameplay aspects of battling lycanthropes just out the window. They might as well just be any other enemy. Whites, if you die from the white drain, they don't raise you as a zombie. And wraiths can't create specters from you in a similar manner. So that's everything in the players in the monster manual. And well, it's a small number of things. It's a very diverse list of things. You know what I mean, Pete?
Yeah.
How do you feel just like with those off the bat?
And you have a lot more stuff, I know.
Oh yeah. I mean, in Mordenkainen, the corpse flower can't envelop, digest, or animate your body if you die. The Dybbuk can't violate your the Dybbuk's violate corpse feature, which I think it eats a body, doesn't frighten you. Weird, you are non-phased by cannibalism.
Now, do you have access to the do you have all the spells as well? Because I think those are going to be interesting to talk about too.
I do, but I do actually there's one really big one I'd like to talk about that is in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes.
Sure.
And I mean, obviously, there are a bunch of things on there. Weirdly, the Morezi doesn't decrease your charisma if it bites you, which is its weird core mechanic. But Zugutmoy's core infecting spores feature can't affect you. Zugutmoy, Demon Queen in the Abyss.
Demon Queen of Shrooms.
Yeah. That's a really weird one to just, yes, this powerful CR, 30 demon lord. No.
So a few things to note, because I think this will be an objection on that. I think most GMs will just say, well, it can. Which, that's fair, and that's what you probably should do with this, but you don't want to design something that makes you think well, I'll just have to DM around that for the whole time. Well, that is directly a playability issue.
The issue is, and the big problem is, it creates a problem at the table where the Dungeon Master does not understand these implications, right? The DM has no idea what the implications are of a creature being a fae instead of a humanoid. A very, very tiny fraction of players in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons have any freaking idea. And that's a problem because what'll happen is at the table, or on Roll20, right? The Dungeon Master will hit the button, the ability will pop up for Zugutmoy's infecting spores, and the player will say, oh, but I'm a fae, so it doesn't affect me. And the Dungeon Master will say, well, yeah, but it affects you. And then the player is like, all right, well, I just got fucked, right? You just spot nerfed me, right? That's a really shitty, unfortunate thing to do. And it's not something you really could have talked about ahead of time and said, yeah, I'm going to just treat you as a humanoid for all intents and purposes, because
I think
it's an unknown thing until it happens.
I think there are a lot of parties that are beginner D&D parties that haven't played all that much, that the DM and the players are going to read that, take it out of their mind, and it's never going to come up because they're not even going to realize that. But I think there's also going to be some, I'm not going to use the word a lot because I like to assume that the majority of people aren't jerks, but there's definitely going to be some veteran players that bring this to an experienced DM, and when they're using their vampire and they try to charm, oh, is it the vampire's charm check? No, that doesn't affect me. I'm a fae. And they're going to look at their monster manual and read up and see oh, they're right. Oh, I guess that didn't happen then. And they're going to get kind of bullied by this feature. I can definitely see that happen too.
Yeah. And then, I mean, moving further, right? there are also there are monsters in Volo's Guide to Monsters. The Barghest can't devour your soul, which is an interesting feature of the Barghest I didn't know it had. The Devourer can't imprison you in its ribcage, which again is its core thing. The Grung's Mesmerizing Chur does not stun you, which is kind of the thing that makes Grung different from goblins. So I guess whatever, Grung just aren't relevant to you at all. The Mean-Locked Sphere Aura doesn't get you. The Lucrota can't mimic your voice. The Shadow Mastiff can't terrify you with its terrifying howl. The Spawn of Kius cannot affect you with its Burrowing Worm feature, which is brutal. And the Vargoyle cannot kiss you and infect you. And its Stunning Shriek can't affect you. So just, holy shit, there's a whole lot of fucking monsters that you're just immune to their core power hinging effects. Like, all of their power lies on these features. And so it's like, I don't like that. I think it was a huge oversight, and I really hope that in the final printing, or at least in an errata to this book, that feature gets changed. Oh, Pete, you wanted to hear the spells?
I did want to hear the spells.
Animate dead, so you can't be brought back as a zombie. Same with create undead, so they, both don't have any effect on you. Finger of Death, you can't become undead if the spell kills you, so all kind of the same there. Calm Emotions, can't calm you down. Charm Person, obviously you're not a humanoid, so it doesn't affect you. Crown of Madness doesn't affect you. Dominate Person doesn't affect you. Hold Person doesn't affect you. And then there are a couple of funky ones. Magic Jar, which is a really funky spell that lets you possess and control people's bodies, can't affect you. Reincarnate, you cannot be reincarnated via the Reincarnate spell, which is an interesting one. And Simulacrum, a simulacrum cannot be made of you. So you can't make a simulacrum, and an enemy could not make a simulacrum of you. Which I've seen that done. It's interesting when a dungeon master uses a simulacrum of a player created by a bad guy.
Yeah, that's one of the big like downsides, though, is like you can't simulacrum yourself and make two of yourself. So let's go and wrap some of this. Let's kind of big picture some of this. A couple of arguments being made that by doing that's what Farku was saying, was doing dual creature types makes it so that you just get the bad of both, which is true. Yeah, that is how it works. It's just that the bad is so much less impactful and game defining. One sample that you gave was protection from evil and good. The difference between that, like, I guess that would be in a scenario of PvP, but something like being weak against the spell protection from evil and good, that's something that the GM can choose to put in the game and to use against you narratively, as opposed to it just kind of invalidating an encounter. That's something like, it's a lot easier for the GM to like try and create something rather than just having to avoid something, I would say.
And beyond that, I think it's incredibly important to note that the vast majority of people who play this game, I'm not going to say the vast majority, I take that back. A very large number of people who play this game just play modules. They play what the book tells them to do, because they don't homebrew stuff. They don't run their own adventures. And so they're going to play through Curse of Strahd as the book has told them to run Curse of Strahd. And when the players go to fight Strahd and he wants to use his cool thing to charm them, they don't know I don't know. I guess that doesn't work. Okay. And they don't know how to adapt to that, because there's just not a way to adapt to that. And, a veteran player might see that coming and maybe add something else into the battle to add some dynamicism, or discuss with the player, the implications ahead of time.
Or rewrite Strahd's feature to say creature instead of humanoid.
Yeah, right. Like, there are ways. What it comes down to in the end, though, is I just hate that that's the way it is. I get it for like flavor, but come on.
It's the wrong choice, I would say.
But let's talk overall. So obviously we've given the Fae feature is lame because it just stymies gameplay, especially for iconic features of monsters. But let's talk about the Satyr as a whole. I think this is busted.
Yeah, pretty similar to the one I did. It's got an extra 5 feet of, like, if we're saying the things are the same before, it's the one that I did, which was already controversial. Plus an extra skill, plus an extra 5 feet of movement speed.
Plus, it's actually Fey.
Well, then the Fey. I'm discounting Fey right now. The Fey thing is, I don't think that's busted in the sense of it being overpowered. I think it's busted in, well, it is, but I think it's busted in the sense of, like, this just doesn't really work that well in 5th edition. But
I guess I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, what you gonna do? Sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't. Maybe that's...
I mean, it's not terrible. Like, you're right, Merciful Leaps is very cool. There's some cool stuff on here.
There's some neat design.
I guess I just don't understand why they're pushing the envelope, like, on the power level. Even beyond, like, what the Yuan-Ti already is.
Yeah, especially with kind of a, especially with kind of a, what's the word that I'm looking for? I lost track of my train of thought there because I was reading Farful's comment while I was trying to speak, so I'll go through that now. My apologies. While I agree with a lot of your points, D&D time, you're assuming that a lot of people will utilize the Fey feature to its fullest. I think most players, like an experienced GM, just won't realize the issue. Yeah, I actually mentioned that before as well, and I agree that that's definitely true. I think the problems are going to be the niche cases where it isn't. Most things I usually don't want to design around the niche case, but when the niche case is, like, the intended use, I think it's a different story. Because a lot of the times it's like, someone could, like, really brutally abuse this, but, like, that's actually how this feature is meant to be used, is to ignore effects that target just humanoids, you know?
Yeah, well, exactly, right? Like, I'm with you 100%. For most people, it won't be a problem. But for some groups, this will become a problem. And it's just a matter of, is it worth it? And I don't know. I don't think it is, for the point of flavor. Farku was saying, there's a reason they make things more powerful, but I don't want to be all cynical. No, I mean, it's a fair point, Farku. The people will buy this content because it's stronger. You're right.
Some people, I don't know. I don't even know if that's true in D&D, though. Like,
some people, I think,
I'm not going to say that it's a 0 number, but I feel like that percentage is low, is very low. It just,
probably.
I don't know. How does banishment work on this? I think that would be something that you just have to discuss with your DM, because canonically, well, I mean, it's designed to be played in the Theros setting, and these satyrs are from the Theros setting. So you're just a Fey creature, but the material has Fey creatures. Yeah. So you could probably do that in any campaign. But
yeah, either way, overall, I think it's just a little too much. It just is a little too strong everywhere. You know, if you're a power gamer and you're running a paladin, a sorcerer, a bard, a warlock, or any other charisma class that benefits from dexterity on the side, this is pretty much the way to go. I can't think of a more powerful option than the Satyr.
Yeah, it's very good. No two ways about that. Probably too good.
Also, I liked Pete's more. Just following back, as much as I like Merciful Leaps, right? I liked Enchanting Melody more than Mirthful Leaps.
Yeah,
which is really the only key distinction here.
I would rather have Enchanting Melody. That seems more fun to play with for me personally. That's also my vision of what a satyr is, and theirs is obviously like a little bit different. Like if you read their lore right up a little bit more, mine was a little bit. I think I was surprised a little truer to the mythos of them, which were more as hedonists, which theirs were more just these are kind of like fun, frolicky, joyful creatures, which I liked that vibe more. But again, that's all subjective.
But yeah, overall, I guess, Pete, one thing that we've learned from this is our content is very closely approaching the quality of real Wizards content. We're basically there.
I got the one that I was proud of was having the name Reveler the same. That one felt justifying. What's the word I want? Validating, vindicated. So yeah, I don't know. it's too good. I don't know. It would be like I'd be interested at some point having a longer conversation about like what the point is where pushing the envelope on a race becomes the point, like this far, no further.
Well, and it's really weird because there were also some minor spoilers out for the Leonin, who's the Lion Folk race coming out in Theros. And from what I had heard, again, speculation, I haven't seen this in text anywhere yet. But from what I'd heard about it, they're literally just the Tabaxi race, except their stats have been changed to +2 con, +1 strength, instead of the normal Tabaxi ability score options, which that's just weird. Like, I don't know. I guess it's fine. It's just interesting.
Yeah, and
that's the other race coming out in this book, by the way.
Farku's saying, like, if you want a new thing, wouldn't you want something new to be good? Because why would you buy it if it wasn't good? Citing the Battle Rager Barbarian, as people thought that was super weak and were very harsh on it when it came out. There's a logic to that for sure. Again, that's like an interesting discussion.
The thing about the Battle Rager, right, is it in that specific case, it appealed to a very specific niche audience, and those are people who were invested in the Forgotten Realms novels by R.A. Salvatore, right? Because that is something iconic to the Forgotten Realms setting specifically, and to those novels, right? And it fulfilled that fantasy. If you didn't care about that kind of, I'm a spiky armor, I throw myself at people, barbarian fantasy, and you didn't know those books and weren't into those books, that Battle Rager didn't do anything for you anyway. Forget about it not being like super interesting mechanically. But even then, actually, seeing it in practice, it seems pretty good from what I have a player who's playing it in one of my games, and it seems pretty good, honestly.
One more comment before we take a break and move on. I wanted to make more diverse options as opposed to just different elves. Yeah, and I mean, that's the goal. Is the things that you want to see are the things that are new and unique and inspiring. Because like on that Satyr, if I'm playing that Satyr, I personally as a player, I mean, I know it's good and I'm going to enjoy getting advantage on all my checks against spells. But the thing that I'm going to be excited about is messing around with that Merciful Leaps and coming up with fun things to do about it. It's the new and exciting mechanics. I think that's how you make interesting design that inspires people to get it, that doesn't step on the toes of the power scale. But
yeah, well,
yeah,
either way, before we take our break, Pete, do you want to just quickly talk about what's coming up in Theros and just what we're excited to see? So this is an image tweeted out by Wizards of the Coast. It's a screen grab, or I guess it's a photoshopped image, including the most of the table of contents from the Mythic Odyssey of Theros. And it's very, very interesting. So it's got, 80 pages on character creation, of which, 50 of them are just about the gods of Theros.
I didn't know there was going to be new subclass options.
Mm-hmm.
The College of Eloquence and the Oath of Glory of Bard and a Paladin coming out on the subject of a really good charisma-based race.
Yeah, right. If that College of Eloquence is anything like the College of Eloquence was in the Unearthed Arcana, with the calm person spell on lock, oh my god, what a hellscape that's going to be.
Yeah, I liked...
Especially since you're immune to calm emotions. Everyone except for you is just being forced to do nothing if you run around and set fires to buildings or whatever.
I really liked the direction. I liked the idea of the College of Eloquence, but that Unearthed Arcana was definitely not the best execution of that idea.
The Oath of Glory, though, which was the Oath of Heroism in the Unearthed Arcana, I'm interested to see where that was, too, because that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that one. Again, barring the some of the issues with power scaling on it, which I assume I hope they've dialed back a bit.
Yeah, it was a little much. It was just I'm very good at everything.
It looks here. Yeah, I'm seeing all the gods lined up here. Yep. I love. They got Heliod, the Theros version of Zeus. It's a very cool pantheon for anyone who's played the Magic set. I saw Maddie hanging out. I know that you know the MTG stuff very well. But,
one of the things that's actually coming out in this book that I think is kind of interesting is it looks like they have a section on myths and deeds divine relationships and actually the piety system, which is a piety system in the player's handbook. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, but it's like really tiny and not. It was an afterthought, really. It was just like, if you want to include piety in your games, here's a way to do it, I guess. I'm excited to see that it's got its own probably like page or so of write-up in this. So hopefully that'll be a little bit more engaging and interesting. And even just having some write-ups on like worship, because thinking about, right, how people in the world worship, right? That's something that a lot of games I feel like lack. And I'm interested to see what kind of guidance they actually have in here of like, this is how worship manifests, right, in this setting, that could get some dungeon masters to really think about it.
Agreed. Yeah, I see they have a section there on, god-based adventures and stuff like that, which is cool. I know they had a little bit of stuff like that in, I believe that was Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, with the elves and the deities of the elves. They were talking a bit about worship, but not in too much detail and not on like a big scale. You had mentioned to me before the piety rules. What were the piety rules before this?
Oh God, it was literally like a paragraph in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's been so long since I've ever looked at it. I should have probably looked at it before.
Likewise.
But I didn't. So
fair enough. But I'm
really
interested
much more about it right now.
Yeah, I know it was on the weaker side, so I'm looking forward to see how it comes out here. And then obviously there's all of the a huge chunk of monsters here.
It looks like it's going to be about 100 pages of monsters, many of which should be pretty scary.
Well, one thing that I think works, I'm really excited about these monsters a lot more than I was about the Ravnica monsters, is because a lot of these are pulled from Greek mythology, so they have a lot more general purpose use than, for example, like, not every game can have a
Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, a Niv Mizzet dragon or a Rakdos like cultist reveler. But I think every game can have a naiad. Like,
absolutely. Or even just like two-headed Cerberus, right? Like,
yeah, some of these
not?
Like different hydras, like alternative hydras. If your players have already figured out how to beat a regular hydra efficiently, try the Iron Scale Hydra, whatever that is.
Or Colossus of Akros, right? That's just a giant animated statue.
Or Polychronos is, I'm pretty sure, just like a CR probably 20 Hydra, which, late game Hydra, cool.
I'm very excited for the monsters that we're going to see out of here.
Yeah, I think it's a cool new zone they're going into on monsters. I definitely like this more than Ravnica for that.
Another interesting thing about it, right? You mentioned, right, a naiad. I think there's going to be a lot of not only fiends in here, but also fey creatures, right? Under nymphs, we have Alciad, Lampad, Naiad, and Oread. So right there, 4 new, probably low CR fey creatures for spells like Summon Fey or Summon Woodland Beings or what have you, right? These are going to be really cool, especially if you want to play in a more Fey-centric setting. Like, if you want to play in the Feywild currently, you have to homebrew like everything. There's only a small number of Fey creatures.
You got Corrids. You got Corrids and Pixies. I'm excited to see some of those. But yeah, that's kind of the big thing. I think the monsters are going to be cool in this, and I am a little bit nervous about the subclasses, but I liked both of those concepts, so I'm looking forward to seeing the execution on those.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's about all I have to say about this. Anything else you want to say before we take a break?
Just quickly see, because this is on their product overview on their website. I'm interested in the supernatural gifts that they put in there, because there's already, again, some of those in the Dungeon Master's Guide in terms of boons and blessings that players can get.
Epic boons.
Yeah, and I've really, really loved those systems, right, and how those have worked. And really just how players and Dungeon Masters have used them outside of the game. Like, for example, in the Tomb of Annihilation game, right, there are little module, right, there are little creatures that through them you can get blessings or boons from. little charms and boons and the like. And then, of course, there's other places in that module you can get stuff. But I'm really excited to see if there are new ones in here. I really hope it's not just a rehash of all the stuff already in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So I'll be so bummed out if it is. But I expect we're going to see a whole new table of cool, like, here are cool supernatural things that you can get. Or you can
wish, like, it's almost kind of disappointing that they're so heavily bound to Theros, probably. Because I bet there'll be, like the athletics of Aetherios, or whatever Aetherios does. I can't remember what Aetherios is the god of. Rather, where people will just kind of, like, eyes will gloss over them without realizing that this is just a boon from a god of sport. Like, I don't know, it's one of the downsides of stuff like this, but I am still excited to see them.
But either way, I think that's about it. We don't have much more information about this. Besides that, and Pete, this is a question, and it's super minor, but I don't know very much about it. But big monsters in Theros are going to have a special new thing. So, like, big monsters have legendary actions. There's a new thing called Mythic Actions that certain monsters have. I have literally no idea. I have no idea. I have no idea how it's supposed to work. I saw one of them, and it just looked like a legendary action, like in terms of like what it did.
Interesting. I can't connect that necessarily to anything obvious in Magic. It's been a little while for me. It might be because they did a new Theros set, so it might be something related to that.
I'm interested to see how those play in, because if they can come up with an exciting and interesting way for also Fable and story actions. Thank you, Farku.
That's pretty good.
We all know myths are worse than legends, or I'm sorry, less powerful than legends. There's got to be less powerful than a legendary action.
We will.
Anyway,
we will see.
We're gonna be right back, and Pete, when we get back, what are we gonna do?
We're going to be doing the Lich's Lair on the Travel Domain Cleric, submitted by Farfel13 Crowley, or maybe known as Euchalicus. Either way, we'll be doing that when we get back, so stay tuned.